Peace to everybody tuning in to another edition of the Bible in Plain View. The lesson that we'll be going over today is from the kingdoms of men to God's, the Lord rules. And conversations such as this is fascinating. I love conversations like this because it really brings insight to the fact that, God really has been running things from the very beginning. You would think that's a no-brainer. You would think that it's obvious that Lord is a controller of things, right? I mean, he put everything into existence. And in addition to that, I mean, we live in a time where politics and things that affect, and we hear about wars and rumors of wars, and just we're all trying to figure out what's going on, because in reality, from us, we may not understand every single piece that's being moved on the board, but the Lord sees it. And ultimately, everything is walking us closer and closer to the coming of the Lord. And this isn't by chance. You may see somebody be put in office or over a country, be like, that doesn't make sense. That person isn't qualified. But what you're going to see is the Lord, hey, he's been moving the pieces since day one. And that's the purpose of this conversation here. Because again, it's from the kingdoms of men. Because you see from the beginning of time, hey, fast forward to when the Lord sent the flood and wiped out all of mankind, saved 8 souls. Noah had 3 sons. That was Shem, Ham, and Japheth. And the Lord has allowed each one of these brothers to basically rule the earth for a period of time through their lineage. We, even as Black people, we talk a lot about how, they want to talk about African history, because for a period of time, it did appear it was that, your African empires were running things. And we're going to look at even the Egyptians, which was part of that peak of their power and their civilizations, and how it transitioned from them over to another set of people. And then even from them, it's going to transition to another set of people. Like I mentioned, all of Noah's sons have had the opportunity to run things on this earth, but this wasn't by chance. The Lord had it come this way, and ultimately it's to walk us down to the ultimate kingdom that's not going to end. See, all of these kingdoms that man has brought up and ruled for a period of time, guess what? They all had an expiration date. I mean, you have civilizations we probably never even heard of. They didn't even make it to our history books. But man has been changing, power has been changing hands time and time again. But we're all going to end up seeing the ultimate kingdom, which we're going to see at the end of the lesson, is God's kingdom. But what I want to stress to us is that even in the midst of everything going on right now, hey, the Lord is still ruling. He's sitting high, looking low, seeing how man is operating, and best believe he realizes that man can't hold this up together much longer. That's why he tell you in Matthew 24, hey, if it wasn't for the fact that he was short in the days, mankind would destroy itself. But for the sake of the elect, that he's going to spare his elect, he's not going to let them to be wiped out. Hey, he gonna shorten these days. He gonna come. He is going to put a stop to things, and not only redeem his people, but establish righteousness, peace, and real order worldwide. So let's get into it. Let's go over to our first spot, which is Exodus chapter 12. As I mentioned, you're gonna see throughout history, and we can see it, but it's fascinating because, like I tell you, I think it's Isaiah 46. God called the end from the beginning. He been let us know that everything that was going to transpire, hey, he let us know ahead of time. That's what's so fascinating about the God that we serve, the God of this Bible. So we're going to go over to Exodus chapter 12. And we're going to fast forward. We talked about Noah and his 3 sons, and this is going to be a little bit of a history lesson, but something impactful that we're going to see here is in Exodus chapter 12. We're going to talk about the Egyptians. See, they were a ruling power at that time, and they were a formidable power at that time as well. You look at them, and no one would have thought that these Hebrews that were enslaved to them for 400 years, because mind you, Jesus, I mean, God was talking to to Abraham. You read in Genesis 15, he let them know, hey, you're going to die in your old age, but your children after you, they're going to be in captivity for 400 years. And then I'm going to come into the picture and I'm going to free them. And they're going to spoil those who have oppressed them, essentially. And you know what's going to happen? Fast forward Exodus chapter 12, Abraham is gone. Abraham had Isaac, he's gone. Isaac had Jacob, he's gone. But Jacob had 12 sons, which were ended up being the 12 tribes of Israel, and they are under the Egyptian oppression. They're in slavery. And the Lord, through the hand of Moses, has been telling Pharaoh, you got to let my people go. He sent plague after plague after plague after plague. Pharaoh would be like, all right, let's get him out of here. Then he would change his mind. Then he's like, you know what? I think I'm fully convinced I'm gonna let him go. Then he would change his mind. But now we get into the point where we're reaching the climax, where God is going to really have Pharaoh let his people go through the Passover, which is what we're going to read about today in this chapter right here. Exodus chapter 12. We're going to pick it up at verse 3. When you get there, go ahead and read, please.
Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, in the 10th day of this month shall they shall take them to every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house.
Because this lamb is significant. And just to learn something on the way of learning something, just like they had the Passover then where they had to kill a lamb, and he spared those who had the blood over them. Guess what? This was pointing to Jesus. He's that Passover lamb. But hey, we looking at something that physically took place. Hey, once they get that lamb, they was gonna cook that lamb. They got on the 10th day. They got on the 14th day. They killed that lamb on the 14th day. They sprinkled the blood over the doorposts. And this was a memorable moment right here. Jump down to verse 12. What's that say?
For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast. And against all the gods of Egypt will I execute judgment. Because I am the Lord.
One thing you want to also understand is that you got these different nations with all their different gods, but there's only one and true living God, and he rules again amongst men. That's why lessons called from the kingdoms of men to gods. The Lord rules. He's been ruling from the very beginning. And though Egypt had the ability to be a formidable kingdom and so forth, guess what? The Lord is saying, hey, your time is up. Your time is up of being king, being able to rule things, because really he's segueing and opening the door for his nation, Israel, to raise up as a prominent nation of that time. You know, even like I said, we mentioned Genesis 15, where he gave the prophecy to Abraham, and he said, listen, at that time, hey, it's not time for this to take place yet, because the cup of the Amorites is not fulfilled. Meaning, hey, you have these Hamite nations running things, but hey, they still got some time before I come in and close the door on their ability to be really ruling things. And guess what? Even now, when we talk about these African nations and saying, hey, you know, we could just pull our resources together and we do this and we do that. We go back to Africa, we unite, we can do some things. Guess what? The Lord is not going to allow that. Because we're going to see we under a new type of rulership. We just getting some backstory before we get into present time. But we seeing here how Egypt, being the great nation that it was, hey, the Lord is giving them the boot, essentially. He says, for I will pass through the land of Egypt this night and will smite all the firstborn of the land of Egypt, both man and beast, against all the gods. Not only is he taking them down, he's also showing him everybody who's a true and living God, the God of the Hebrews. Hey, Jesus, that's what we talk about right here. And against all the gods of Egypt, I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. Verse 13.
And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where ye are.
Mm-hmm.
And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you when I smite the land of Egypt.
So he taking down Egypt, right? And if you ain't got this blood, hey, you gonna get caught in the crosshairs. So you best believe you better have this blood, or you're gonna experience the same repercussions they will. Let's jump down to verse 33. What's that say?
And the Egyptians were urgent upon the people, that they might send them out of the land in haste. For they said, we be all dead men.
Hey, that's the cue. Hey, get them out of here. Get them out of here. The Lord. See, the thing is, why am I showing this? Because man can't stop what God got going on. When he says your time is up, your time is up. They're not going to be able to run things anymore. And again, he's segueing and opening the door for the next set of people to rise up. And you see Israel going to come up. We're going to see that in the next place. Jump down to verse 40. What's that say?
Now the sojourning of the children of Israel, who dwelt in Egypt, was 430 years.
That's right. Go ahead.
And it came to pass at the end of the 430 years, even the self same day, it came to pass that all the host of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt.
Right. So, hey, like I mentioned in Genesis 15, it was a prophecy. It said they're going to be in captivity 400 years. Here, you're reading about 430 years. But the time spent in Egypt was not always captivity. Because mind you, Joseph was second in power to Pharaoh when he had his brothers come down to Egypt. And it says 70 souls came down into Egypt, right? So from there, hey, Joseph had passed away. Time had passed. And then you saw this conflict. You read in the beginning of Exodus. He's like, man, this nation becoming a great nation. What's stopping them from one of our enemies coming against us, uniting with them and taking us out? So that oppression began, and it had been there for some time. But ultimately, what we see in here is when the Lord said it was time and he wanted to free Israel, and it was time to raise them up as the prominent power. Hey, he said, hey, Egypt, you coming down. And there was nothing Egypt could do about it. Right. So let's go over to our next spot, which is Deuteronomy chapter 7. Because again, the African nations, they had their time to run things, but the Lord said, hey, ultimately, he called in from the beginning, and though man has been running things, everything is going to walk us down to the kingdom of God. That's what we're going to see at the end of this lesson. So Egypt came down, and from there, Israel began to come up. So we're going to go over to Deuteronomy 7. We're going to read a few verses here, and then we're going to carry on. Verse 1, what's that say?
When the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it, and have cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites, and the Girgashites, and the Amorites, and the Canaanites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou.
You got to really think about this. God is speaking from the standpoint of, this is what I'm doing. Like, really think about that. It's not up for debate. It's not like the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hittites, the Girgashites, it's not like any of these people really had a say in the matter, because the Lord rules amongst even the kingdoms of men. When he says it's time for a power to come down, that power is coming down. When the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land whither thou goest to possess it. I'm letting you know, I'm taking these lands, I'm giving them to you. Because it wasn't Israel who was fighting these battles, it was the Lord. Right? And it has cast out many nations before thee, the Hittites, the Girgashites, Amorites, Canaanites, Perizzites, Hivites, Jebusites, 7 nations greater and mightier than thou. Verse 2.
And when the Lord thy God shall deliver them before thee,
right,
thou shalt smite them and utterly destroy them. Thou shalt make no covenant with them, nor show mercy unto them.
So how are these nations gonna be greater or mightier than thou, but you're gonna go in there and just utterly destroy them? You're gonna smite them, you're gonna wipe them out. How does that work? Well, you serve the true and living God. That's the answer to that question. When you serve the true and living God, when you have the creator, and we talking about God, the one who rules in the kingdoms of men, yeah, you win by default. Because it's the Lord who's pushing the needle forward at the end of the day. Let's jump down to verse 6. What's that say?
For thou art an holy people unto the Lord thy God.
Mm-hmm.
Lord thy God had chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, above all people that are upon the face of the earth.
So what we're reading here says, for thou art a holy people unto the Lord thy God. You read in Exodus chapter 19 when he said, listen, I bear you on eagle's wings. I freed you from Egypt, and I brought you unto myself to be a nation of priests, a kingdom. Again, in the kingdom of men, he's ruling, and Egypt stepped down. Israel's coming up. and they're being raised up by the hand of God. It says right here, the Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself. Why? Because he's the one who's pushing the needle forward. He's the one moving the pieces on the chessboard, not man themselves. When God says it's time, it's time. Whoever goes up in the power is by his hand. Whoever goes down in power is by the hand of the Lord. And the Lord decided that that time it was going to be Israel that he was going to be raising up at that time. And so Israel did rise up. And really, where does Israel come into the picture? That's from that Shem lineage. Your Semitic people, your Arabs, people such as those Ishmaelites. Those people come from Shem. But let's keep going. Let's go over to Daniel chapter 4. And we're going to plug this verse in, which is going to pivot and walk us towards the dynasty of the people running things now. So here we're going to read one verse in Daniel chapter 4 and verse 17. We saw Israel being raised up. We saw Egypt take a back seat. Hey, and Israel's running things for some time, but they end up being a wicked nation. See, their success was predicated on them being a righteous nation, but Israel continually dropped the ball and was not serving God how they're supposed to. And because of that, hey, you saw through Solomon, the kingdom split. You had the northern tribes, and then you had the southern tribes. You have Judah and you had Israel. That kingdom split into two different nations. Same people, but just two places being ruled from two different places. Essentially, they split up. And eventually, one nation got thrown into a captivity. And then you had some remaining there for a period of time before the Lord took them out, for a period of time completely. But all of this is the Lord moving the pieces. Even when the kingdom split, the Lord had a hand in that. And fast forward to even the governing powers today, the Lord has a hand in that as well. But this is all to say this right here, Daniel 4 and verse 17, because we reading about Nebuchadnezzar. Hey, he was a ruling power under Babylon, and he got puffed up thinking that he was running things in terms of that he was the one who caused himself to have all the success and power. And the Lord changed his mind to think like a beast for 7 years as punishment for that. And when he came back to his senses, this is the conclusion he came to. Verse 17, what's that say?
This matter is by the decree of the watchers, and the demand by the word of the holy ones, to the intent that the living may know that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men.
See, even though men being put into political power or anything to that effect, it's still the Most High that ruleth in the kingdom of men. And what else?
And give it to whomsoever he will, and set it up over it. And set it up over it, the basis of men. Even the basis of men. You'd be like, man, Trump, he's just a businessman. He has no authority. He has no right being in the office. Hey, who put him up? It says right here that the Most High ruleth in the kingdom of men, and giveth it to whomsoever he will, and setteth up over it the basis of men. See, them electoral colleges don't matter. Them votes don't matter. The popular vote, it don't matter. At the end of the day, God is the one who's running things. So if you want to know who to vote for Jesus. And how you vote for him is by keeping the commandments of God. Because then you preparing yourself for the kingdom of God, because them laws ain't changed. The same laws that's in this Bible going to be the laws of the kingdom. So you want to vote for Jesus, keep them commandments. Prepare for the kingdom that's going to be established and will never end. Let's go over to Daniel chapter 2. Because Israel was running things for some time. And like I said, you had nations from Shem's lineage doing things. But ultimately, from Ham's lineage taking a back seat, Shem's lineage had to take a back seat as well. And it opened the door to the seed of the Gentiles, or the seed of Japheth. And ultimately, the Gentiles are coming to the picture. You're Europeans. So Daniel 2,
We're going to pick it up at verse 37 because Nebuchadnezzar had a dream that he didn't remember the dream. So he told his astrologers, his wise men, his soothsayers, hey, y'all got to not only tell me what the dream is, but also tell me what it meant. And no one could do it. But then the Lord, through the hand of Daniel, through the hand of God, through the power of God, was able to give them the vision and also the understanding. So let's jump down to verse 37. Deuteronomy chapter 2 and verse 37. What's that say?
Thou, O king, art a king of kings.
Mm-hmm.
For the God of heaven hath given thee a kingdom, power, and strength, and glory.
So we seen right here talking about Nebuchadnezzar, because in this vision, it was a statue. The head was gold, the breast and the arms were silver, the belly and the thighs were brass, and the legs and the feet, they were iron, right? And the feet, they were mixed with clay. And now he's giving you a breakdown of what these different pieces of that body meant. So we're seeing right here, thou, O king, art a king of kings, for the God of heaven have given thee a kingdom, again, because God ruleth in the kingdom of men, right? Power and strength and glory. Keep reading, 38.
And wheresoever the children of men dwell, the beasts of the field and the fowls of the heaven hath he given into thine hand, and have made thee ruler over them all. Thou art this head of gold.
Because the statue was representing the Gentile dynasty. And it started off with Nebuchadnezzar. He was that head of gold. And keep reading, 39.
And after thee shall arise another kingdom inferior to thee.
So then after that head of gold, like I said, you had the breast and arms of silver, but that was going to be a kingdom inferior to it. That's really referring to Russia and Iran, because you have multiple visions referring to the same thing, different images, or like, for example, you had the bear that represented Russia and Iran. And then in another parable or another vision, it was, a ram that had two horns. That were represented from Nebuchadnezzar down to Russia and Iran, the Medes and the Pers. That's what their names were. Then from there, from that inferior kingdom, it says another kingdom of what?
And after these shall arise another kingdom, another third kingdom of brass.
Of brass. See, that's walking you down to the Greeks. But as you go down this body, the power and the quality of that kingdom is going to deduce bit by bit until you walk into the greatest kingdom, which is not of the body, really leading you to God's kingdom. But you see another third kingdom of brass, which shall bear rule over all the earth. And then verse 40, what's that say?
And the fourth kingdom shall be strong as iron.
Yeah.
For as much as iron breaketh in pieces and subdueth all things. And as iron that breaketh all these things, as iron that breaketh all these, shall it break in pieces and bruise.
Because everything's walking you down from the kingdoms of men and men being able to run things all the way down to the coming of the Lord and his rulership being established. So you had you had the head of gold, then you had the silver, which was the kingdom inferior to the gold. Then you had the third kingdom, which was the brass. And like, as I mentioned, that silver, that inferior kingdom, that was Russia and Iran. Then walking down to the third, which was the brass, that was the Greeks, with Alexander the Great establishing a kingdom. And hey, he had 4 generals that came up after him, but they couldn't hold up the power in the same level as Alexander did. And from those 4 generals, that's when Rome came into the picture. We all have heard about that Greco-Roman era, because out of Greece came Rome. It's same, but ultimately all these people are of the same dynasty, the Gentiles. And that's why Jesus even said in Luke chapter 21, when he was talking to Israel, how they were going to go into worldwide captivity, he said Jerusalem's going to be trodden down of the Gentiles to the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. The Gentiles are going to be running things until the coming of the Lord. And when you look at the world today, the Europeans, your Gentiles, your white folks, they running things. We're going to jump down to verse 44. What's that say?
And in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed.
See, when you get down to the feet, you're going to have these 10 toes. They're going to represent kings. And there's a reason why this, it says right here, in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom. See, he's not going to hit this statue at the head or in the breastplate where the heart is. No, he's going to hit him at this feet, because this body is also representing a timeline from the succession of one power to another till we get to our time, and the Lord is going to set up his kingdom. It says, in the days of these kings shall the God of heaven set up a kingdom. Go ahead.
Which shall never be destroyed.
Yeah.
And the kingdom shall not be left to other people, but it shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever.
Because again, God ruleth in the kingdoms of men. We're going to go over to our next part, which is Acts chapter 2. God is ruling in the kingdoms of men. We've seen the succession of power from one to the other, walking us down to the coming of the Lord in his kingdom. So Acts chapter 2 and verse 32. And when you get there, go ahead and read, please.
This Jesus have God raised up, whereof we all are witnesses.
What is this talking about? See, Peter, he's telling you about a prophecy that David made, because David in the book of Psalms, which we're going to go to next, he talk about how he's going to be sitting at the right hand of the Lord, waiting till he make his enemies his footstools. Right? But David is dead in the grave to this very day. So Peter is giving insight as to what David was really talking about, because as you read the scriptures, you realize that God was talking through the mouth of David. And a lot of times the things that David was saying, it wasn't even pertaining to David. It was really talking about Jesus. So now he's letting you know, hey, David may have made this statement, but hey, David is still in the grave to this day. Instead, it says, this Jesus hath God raised up, whereof we all are witnesses, because Jesus died, he went into the grave, but he got back up. And now what's happening? Verse 33.
Therefore, being by the right hand of God exalted, and having received of the Father the promises of the Holy Ghost, he hath shed forth this, which ye now see and hear.
Hey, no, he got up out of the grave. The Lord brought him up. And it's now what we see in verse 34.
For David is not ascended into the heavens.
See, David is still in the grave to this day. He has not ascended into the heavens, but who? Go ahead.
But he saith himself, the Lord said unto my Lord, sit thou on my right hand, until I make thy foes thy footstool.
See, the Lord is sitting at the right hand of the Father. Jesus is. David is still in the grave to this day. And all this time has passed, right? Nebuchadnezzar, Russian Iran, the Greeks, down to the Romans, and that's what the Romans still rolling to this day. That's a conversation for another day. But ultimately, that timeline is beginning to expire. And while he's doing that, hey, he's sitting at the right hand of the Father till he make his enemies his footstool. Let's go to our second and last spot, Psalms 110. And we're going to pick it up at verse 1. Verse 1. Because this is what Peter was quoting. Psalms 110 and verse 1. What's that say?
The Lord said unto my Lord, sit thou at my right hand, until I make thine enemies thy footstool.
Go ahead.
The Lord shall send the rod of thy strength out of Zion. Rule thou in the midst of thine enemies.
As the kingdom he's going to be set up, it's going to be back in Jerusalem. Man has had his time to run things. The Lord is taking his authority back ultimately, and of his kingdom there will be no end. All right, he's sitting at his right hand until he make his enemies that footstool. Same thing, foes, like you saw in Acts 2, enemies, same thing. He's going to rule out of Zion, verse 5.
The Lord at thy right hand shall strike through kings in the day of his wrath.
And like he hit that statue at the feet, and he is going to destroy that image. He's going to rise up his kingdom. Like it says right here, the Lord at thy right hand shall strike through kings in the day of his wrath. Go ahead.
He shall judge among the heathen. He shall fill the places with dead bodies.
That's right. He shall judge among the heathen. He shall fill the places with dead bodies. He shall wound the heads over many countries. And we're not gonna go over to our last spot, but in Revelation 11 is basically telling you the same thing. Now it says that the seventh trump is gonna say, hey, the angels gonna sound. They say, listen, the kingdoms of this world are become the kingdoms of our God and of his Christ. They gonna reign forever and ever. He gonna be running things on this earth. Again, as the lesson is from the kingdoms of men to God's, the Lord rules. He was pushing the needle forward. He was moving the chess pieces on the board when it came to men running things, ultimately walking you to the kingdom of God. And I hope y'all got some understanding in Jesus' name.